That's right. We have traveled to the future once again. Have you
You're
enjoyed?
enjoying that way too much.
That's right. That's my new hydrosynth.
We're going to have to, are we on tape now? Are we doing this actually? Are we going to talk about
Analog.
what we witnessed last night? That now that we've traveled through time?
Listen, there was a very...
Hey, here's your tweet. How many times during this week's AEW Dynamite did you ask yourself, what the is happening? Choices are 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, or 37 times. And so far you've got 1,785 votes in the last hour.
Which number is winning?
Well, I don't know how to see that.
Oh,
what do I do? Do I click on something or?
I think you may have to vote.
Well, then I'll goddamn vote 37 times. 37 times is winning with 83% of the vote to 9.5% for 5 times, 4.4% for 3 times, and 3% for 2 times. And as we mentioned, that's with 1,786. No, I'm sorry, it just updated. 1,886 votes. And there's 22 hours left in this polling. Good night.
I like that someone said, you know what? It was only 2 times if I think about it.
Well, one person says, I got super stoned to watch this, and even then I was disappointed.
Listen, if there was ever an episode of AEW Dynamite that was a fever dream, it was last night's episode of AEW Dynamite as we are recording. It was astounding. It was awful and hilarious at the same time, and I literally said, what the fuck is happening multiple times? It was unlike any other episode. And we've seen some classics. Some humdingers of awfulness.
Some humdingers.
But this was...
wait a minute. There's more comments from fans. One person said 37 in a row. Another person says, I need another option, which would be all the show. There's a picture of a flaming dumpster floating down a river. There's... One person said, I had to rethink it because I swear I was at 36, but you were right. I forgot the double what the fuck for the blatant chair to the headshot. Which one? Another one, my dog's name is Mookie, and he just kept staring at my phone the whole segment. It was the first time anything else was the number 1 segment over Reggie's Corner in the Key Animal demo.
See, that's funny.
And it's, it's going on and along like that. Well,
See, that's why it was a fever dream. It's like, I hate it so much, but I couldn't hate it past the point of hilarity because I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
Well, that's the same thing. You'll see, I started making my notes where I was attempting to seriously critique the program as a program. And then the more that it went on, I realized, wait a minute, this is a 2-hour angle that they expect us to continue watching when the exact same thing is happening over and over with different people doing it. And was there a match on the program?
Well, there was a women's match, Britt Baker versus the Return of the Bunny.
Was there a match on the program?
The Young Bucks against the Young Guns.
Was there a match on the program?
Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta.
Okay, there was the match on the program, folks, and now you understand. All right, and they were in Nashville, Tennessee. Nick Goulas is spinning in his grave, and he put on some humdingers. But never anything. And it was like Tony realized, wait a minute, all of a sudden, I haven't done any angles or put together any matches except for the main 2 for Wembley Stadium. So I'm going to do 2 hours of angles amongst people that I will throw them in stipulation matches and gimmick matches on the biggest show that I ever have or ever will run.
Oh, that's what you thought.
And announce it 10 days ahead of time.
I thought Tony said to himself, I haven't done any acid in Q3 yet. I think I'll start this Wednesday and write the show.
I mean, a lot of people are going to say, well, why did he need to announce the matches? They've already sold 80,000 tickets. Well, then, in that case, just have fucking matches. Don't announce 8 of them complete with similar angles on the same 2-hour program. You still need to build it where that you don't announce everything in the same show and confuse everybody and have to do all of this nonsense over and over to make it make any sense, which it didn't to begin with.
Well, and the other problem beyond the late announcement is, beyond one or two things, it's a really underwhelming card on paper. I think people in England were expecting they're going to give us this big WrestleMania type event as opposed to Dynamite supersized.
Well, that's what it is. On paper, to Tony, it's a big event because there's tons of multi-person, no rules, impressive names of the matches. Wow, that sounds great. And that's what he thinks wrestling is. And that's what these minions that work for him, especially on Wednesday nights, think they're supposed to be doing. This right here was every indie wrestler's wet dream television show. People who have never been anywhere, nor will never get anywhere, nor understand anything about professional wrestling as a business or an industry or whatever, this is the kind of shit that they fucking think is great. And they love doing it over and over and over again. So he's got children making up their own angles and doing them independent of whether somebody else is doing the same thing on the fucking show or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's AEW. This was Tony Khan on acid on steroids. That's what this episode was.
Should we go in order?
Yes. I mean, I actually called you up and said, please don't skip any of this. It's amazing.
Well, it was too late. I'd skipped a bit of it, but I got the flavor before I started. And obviously skippable at the start, the opening match. Again, we're back to fucking the company mascot opening the program against Wheeler Useless in defense of his cosplay title belt. And I wrote, so they've given up before they've even started tonight. I think of all the talents in the wrestling business that never got a break to show what they could do. Or a guy like Steve Bradley comes to mind. Or the main eventers in days gone by that were outstanding performers that didn't get paid properly or had injuries derail their careers early. And a fucking joke gets a free ride and a highly paid job because he's the fucking teacher's pet. How many of the guys in the locker room do you think would like to fucking shove a goddamn infected hypodermic needle in his spine
as he
walks by in catering?
No, they love him. They all say great things about him.
But they all say wonderful things about him. How many people do you think are sitting there going, I've got talent. I've got youth. I've got ability. I got a personality. Wait a minute. Now I'm thinking not many. Well, they're probably saying that to themselves, but in all seriousness, there are some talents there in the company. And they're sitting there looking at this guy getting 15 minutes to go out and jack off in a pair of fucking blue jeans and his fucking hatchet-headed haircut and his unimpressive fucking overall appearance just because the boss thinks he's cute.
And he just did an interview. I just read quotes at least that were going around like the day before and the day of Dynamite. He did an interview saying that he's the one who got Wheeler Yuta his job in AEW.
And so we got him for another thing to blame him for. But anyway, and I thought, can you imagine a wrestling fan waking up from a coma after 30 years? And this is the first thing they see. And they're like, what now? Wrestling has turned into bum fights with homeless guys.
You know, above any other episode or time in wrestling history, if you took someone from like the 1950s, the beginning of wrestling on television nationwide, and they traveled forward into the future and landed here and said, oh, wrestling's on. Let me see what's on national TV on wrestling. And this was the episode. I mean, that's like a mind-blowing future that you can't even imagine.
And then you think, can I go back? Even if I can't go back in time, just put me back in the fucking coma. All right, so Pockets won, and then immediately Claudio and the plumber were in and were beating him up.
Did you see Moxley's stomps?
Yes. He thinks he's Austin. He's trying to prove that theory. You can get away with shitty corner stomps if you're Steve Austin. He ain't Steve Austin. But it wasn't any worse looking than anything else, because here came the Puddin' Gang. And between, who was the one guy? I think Useless was throwing fake punches that wouldn't have hurt my Aunt Lola. And they just all flail their arms and legs about. They're not even trying. They think if everybody's in motion, people won't focus on any one part of it to see that it's obviously phony and they're not trying. And then out come the Lucha Brothers and Alex, and they had more fake fighting. And there was a standoff for a minute where I guess they're the baby faces. They cleared the ring and the BBC grabbed chairs and nothing happened. And then Tony apparently screamed, "Play Kingston's music." And then Kingston came out and had a sloppy fight with Claudio, and everybody started the sloppy fight again. And the BBC bail out and go back out into the people. They're such hot heels, they just stand there. Nobody attempts anything. And Kingston challenges for a stadium stampede match between whoever was in the ring and whoever was out on the floor. And I think he said, "Get you a couple of friends." And they're going to have it at Wembley Stadium. Oh, joy. They did what the fuck? We'll just have a stadium stampede match for no fucking reason whatsoever with fucking preliminary guys involved because we're in a stadium and it's 5-on-5, and that way there's more no rules bullshit to please all of these people that are coming thinking they're going to see a fucking wrestling event.
Huh.
Your thoughts, Mr. Plumber?
Joke's on you. You know, the match, I didn't really care. I didn't watch the match. I have to be honest. This is the one thing I
No,
did
you
skip
can't.
through.
You can't.
But the post-match, again, I watch Moxley now because I'm convinced he can't do anything. So I watch him, and you watch these stomps, and they look awful. And I remember, like, as a kid doing stomps on my friends on the front lawn.
Yeah.
And every one of those kids from summer camp had better stomps than John Moxley did here. It looked really bad. And then, again, it's one thing if it was like,
you forget, I've seen a lot of people literally on their first day of wrestling school. Not as a joke. I've seen that. And most of them were better than that.
And again, what is this setting up? It's not Orange Cassidy. Remember, briefly, he was like teaming with Darby Allin every week. Darby has 2 other feuds to work on, so he can't be in a third one right now. It's him with, as you call them, the Puddin' Gang. What is that? The best friends. Nobody wants to see that. You're forcing this thing. They had a match on Rampage that a very small audience watched, but it was the biggest one for Rampage in a while. And now they're doing their...
Well, then they had the ultimate garbage match wrestling, you know, in the parking lot and whatever the fuck. And now they want to try to top that with more shit that will just wear the poor folks in Wembley out before they see the matches they actually paid to see.
I have to say, I've never been a fan of the Stadium Stampede, but this has to be be the anticipated one ever, right? The least demand for one. You don't even know who the opponents are.
10 days ahead of time. Nobody's going to want to see it now that they know who's in it, but anything that's announced 10 days ahead of time would not be highly anticipated. You can't highly anticipate, boy, as soon as I walk across this street, a bread truck's going to run me over. You don't have a lot of time to anticipate that.
Who's going to be the Blackpool Combat Club's multiple surprise members? Will Danielson be back?
No, he apparently they could be kayfabing everybody, but a broken arm, and why would you? Oh, let's get one of the most biggest stars, most valuable members of the roster. He's just recovering from a broken arm. Let's put him in a fucking 10-man garbage match. You wouldn't do that anyway if you were not insane, which that doesn't preclude Tony, but...
There you go.
I'm going for Renee Moxley Good. I think she'd be a good partner on the other side.
Interesting.
She'd probably like the BBC. But 20 minutes into this program, Was it, again, basically every indie wrestler's wet dream. Are you wheezing over there?
I'm laughing at whatever it is you said.
I don't know what I said, and I'm sure it was entirely accurate. So then Jim Ross sat down with Kenny Olivier about his Uncle Don, which apparently now he still feels like Don is still an uncle, but he's not as nice as Uncle Larry. When Olivier speaks, you realize why he's never going to make it as the big star, the major star in wrestling, the great. He may be the great artist that people have deluded themselves in their mind on, in the Tokyo Dome and in this little fucking setting here, but he's never going to be Cody Rhodes because he can't fucking talk. He sounds like a complete douchebag. And
that was heavily edited. That was clipped real tight, like nonstop.
Are you kidding? It was edited in a fucking mix master. It was cut to ribbons. But he sounds like a douchebag, and he says nothing in an interesting way, and it sounds like he cares little about what he's talking about. And in this one,
he explains how Don Callis is not his family, but did nice things for him, and then says, well, you can't choose your family. Yes, you literally did, because he's not your family. That's what you just said.
Well, because they were cutting it up, that, they were trying to make it make sense, but he was not mad. He wants to move on from this, not get even. This is what he's saying before the shit goes down. Because believe me, in every segment of this program, the shit is going to go down. But he wasn't mad at the heel's betrayal of him. I'm going to move on. I still I just need to get past this. What kind of fucking pussy, dickless, ballless, gutless, fucking babyface wrestling hero gets betrayed by the goddamn heel and wants to move on?
Jim Ross, he stabbed you in the head with a screwdriver.
He said that. He said, well, he did stab you in the head with a screwdriver. I just want to move on. So how can you... I mean, it's almost like they're trying on purpose to bring the joke to life that Punk said, I'm sorry, that, you're the only people softer than you are the fucking wrestlers you like, and they are out there in a contest to prove that they are the softest people on earth. So he wants to move on, not get even with the family member that stabbed him in the head with a screwdriver because he's a fucking gutless douchebag. But then here comes Don Fowlis. And as he comes in and says about 3 words, Gin and Juice come in from the back and fakely beat up Twinkle Toes, and Take a Shit helps them. And they're in the empty Daly's place in Jacksonville in this giant, stadium they have down there, doing this interview. So they take him over and they bash him against a garage door, whatever the fuck. And it just looked so hokey. And JR just had to get up and shake his head and walk off.
But the camera cuts, the way it was cut, it was hysterical. Because it was just like, boom,
keeps
boom,
going back
boom,
to him to get the reaction shot of JR standing there going, God, that cowboy would have fired all of them for this phony looking shit.
And the best thing is, because it's in an empty arena, you get a lot of, acha, acha,
yeah,
acha.
They're making their own sound effects. Hush, 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 acha, acha, acha. Nobody does that. That was some Bruiser Brody shit. Harley Race used to go cha-cha-cha when he was in the ring calling spots, but you don't do it in a goddamn fight in a parking lot. But again, we established that the guy got stabbed in the head with a screwdriver and he wasn't mad about it. So now they beat him up, but they didn't stab him. So I guess he shouldn't be too mad about this.
Whoever edited this needs to go work for Adult Swim. It was hysterical. The way it was cut just made it into a comedy segment. There's no other way to look at it. It was ridiculous.
But now I was like, oh, geez, because again, instead of getting Gin and Juice against FTR 3 out of 5 falls, or whatever would have been a classic wrestling match that would have torn Wembley Stadium apart, we're getting FTR against the Buckaroos, and Gin and Juice are tied up with these fucking cretins and their childishness. So there we go.
Well, no, this was the episode where beyond Punk, everything that has been enjoyable from Collision was dragged over to the world of Dynamite. That's what this episode was. And in some cases, on multiple times on the same show. This was really bad. Omega can't talk, as we've always said, but it was cut in a way that made the whole thing funny. Jim Ross really added to it because, you know, he thinks this whole thing is ridiculous. And the way they edited the footage of him into it, made the whole thing funny. I thought that was hysterical. I'm going to keep this on the DVR. I wonder if they could top this in terms of ridiculousness, and they did in the next segment.
We didn't have to wait too long, because now, since that sit-down interview was taped sometime back before, earlier today, whenever it was, time has elapsed, and now we go to a tape of Hangnail Page outside the hospital. He's rushed to the hospital to be by Twinkle Toes' side. And what they call outside the hospital, there's an ambulance parked in the back of the arena in front of one of those foldable garage doors. I think they call them elephant doors, where they raise them up to put the big equipment in the building. And he's the one doing the promo saying, well, Kenny, he ain't finished. And at Wembley Stadium, he's going to have me and Kota Ibushi to help him. So we're getting Hangnail Page, Twinkle Toes, and their friend Kota Ibushi to help to band together against Take a Shit and Gin and Juice. So Gin and Juice are wasted. Take a Shit's wasted. They're all polluted with the elite. But did you enjoy? Everybody goes right by the red lighting and the ambulance sitting 4 feet from a fucking garage door of an arena on your way to the emergency room at the hospital, right?
Saying this was the hospital. It didn't look anything like the outside of a hospital. Saying it was the outside of a hospital.
He was indoors. It was obviously indoors to begin with. Maybe he was inside the hospital and they were treating Twinkle Toes in the parking lot. That's what the issue was.
You said you saw the ambulance. You saw the ass of the ambulance. You didn't see the whole ambulance.
They couldn't back up, or else you would have seen the fucking arena walls.
And he's drinking. He's off the wagon. That's the other thing. He's
drinking a beer.
He's drinking a beer outside the hospital with his camera crew until some random...
While his friend is in danger.
And he's back to his bad promos. I mean, not that they ever...
And then the random guy. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And then the random guy shows up.
He's...
Boy, you're really into this. Go.
Well, no, the random guy is a hospital official. We know that because he's wearing like an AEW collared shirt and his lanyard around his neck says medical staff. And he says, sir, this is a hospital. You can't drink beer here. And so Page chugs what, I guess it was probably iced tea. If he'd have chugged a beer, he would have passed out. And hands him the can. So they even have to put a little of what they consider comedy in the fucking footage where one babyface is supposedly trying to swear revenge on behalf of another babyface to the fucking heels, and they still got to wink at us at the end of the thing. Hangnail Page is truly the definition of an empty-headed dumb fuck that has never done anything in the wrestling business, and he continues to prove that and continues to be that. And they don't give him any help to break that string.
Hey, here's a question for you before we further evaluate this. Is this the promo that he showed up to Collision, the film, and the story's either he was told you're not allowed here or he was told we want to film it somewhere else? Is this the promo?
Well, what other promo would it have been?
Was the other place like outdoors? Like, hey, we don't want to film it here. We want to film it outdoors. So well, it looks like the outside of a hospital.
It seems like that being barred from the Greensboro Coliseum wouldn't have anything to do with shooting a promo outside a fucking hospital. Because I've been to the Greensboro Coliseum and they don't have a hospital in the parking lot.
This was such a bad promo. It looked like a porno set because it was ridiculous. Like it's him in front of the fucking garage door. And you know it's the back of the building because we've seen that garage door in every arena on every wrestling show for the last 25 years.
Well, it's an arena garage door is what it is.
Yeah. And it was so bad. And it followed that Omega segment, which was ridiculous. And instead of something that would make you think like, man, Adam Page is really feeling it for his friend. He's mad. He's going to get even. It was this. A throwback to the early days of AEW. He's a sad drunk. He's drinking in the parking lot of the hospital.
No, he's drinking in the parking garage of the hospital because there was still a roof over their fucking head.
That's true.
Well, speaking of a roof over their head, can we move on to the next segment? Because both of these guys are lucky they have a roof over their head. If their original work in wrestling had been like this, they would be right now panhandling on the street. Uncle Don is back, and he introduces Chris Jericho. And, of course, they go to the break in Jericho's entrance, so we don't have to hear everybody sing. But when they come back, they're in the ring, and this is the point where Don asks Chris to give his answer. Is he going to join the Phallus family? And they've been milking this for weeks, and Jericho was like, I don't know, I start factions, I don't join them. And, everybody was thinking, well, what the fuck? And he's lost the Jericho Appreciation Society over this. And now he stands there and he gives his answer as he thinks about it. Yes, he will join Don's family. And Don is shocked. Wait, what? Yes? And then Jericho says he needs to align with somebody like him, a lowlife like him, right? And so Don is happy and he tells Jericho, well, let's go celebrate. But Jericho says, well, wait a minute, because there's a portrait covered up in the corner of the ring. It's on the easel. It's a painting or a portrait or a picture of some kind. And Don tries to play it off like, well, it's just a small little gift, but we'll look at it later. And Jericho wants to see it. And finally, he whips the covering off, and it is a picture of Don holding Jericho's disembodied head out in his hands. And Jericho's like, well, what is this? And Don, it's a rib. It's a rib. Well, no, that the artist screwed up. Or what? And then Jericho said, you thought I was going to say no, and you were going to have me assassinated or beheaded. And so Jericho asked Don, for the first time in your life, you be honest. So now Jericho was going to join the group shortly ago, but now he tells Don he's always a liar. He's never been blah, blah, blah. So he really was going to join up with a guy was as low as he was. And then Don tells Jericho, well, fuck it. I thought you were going to say no because of your massive ego that's ruined your entire life and run off all your friends. And they just tell each other off now. And then Don slaps Chris, and Chris grabs Don, and here comes Take a Shit with Will Ostrich. They hit the ring, and they beat up Jericho, and they hit him with a chair, and they break the painting over his head, and Jericho gets color. And a pap smear, but it was color, and he's bleeding. And then here comes Sammy Guevara in with a baseball bat, and all the heels bail out. So now I guess Jericho is officially, after he has become the most popular heel with the exception of MJF, in the company, and sapped off the appreciators' heat and the heat of all of the baby faces. Now he switched back babyface so he can do the same thing to the other side of the roster. Your thoughts on this performance, Brian?
The performance was really bad. Again, one of those classic Chris Jericho Monday Night Raw wannabe segments. But to get past the performance, it doesn't make any sense. Why is any of this happening? The portrait thing, the idea that it would have ended with Jericho joining him for a time is one thing. But this is the problem with Chris Jericho booking Chris Jericho. He doesn't know when to quit. And it became this whole thing. So Jericho's a moron, right? I mean, it's the only way you could take it based on this. Jericho's a fool. Don Callis was prepared for all of this. And now we get a match that no one wanted for Wembley Stadium. Like, no one was demanding any of this. And that's what you get. I'll give one positive here. And again, truly bad work from Callis and Jericho. I mean, they're just pleasing themselves with this crap. This was the first blood on the show. And I was like, oh, you know what? It was done really poorly. This whole thing is rushed and stupid. Jericho's really bad in this role, but at least they're trying to get it over as serious. He gets the thing smashed over his head. He's bleeding. But there will be more blood.
So now it's, well, because Take a Shit is over doing the other match, I think. So it's going to be Ostrich against Jericho 1-on-1 at Wembley, correct?
Oh, is it? Or is it going to be Jericho and Sammy versus Takeshita and
well, you would have thought it would have been, but then later on when Jericho was in the back still with his pap smear not wiped off yet so that he could show that, he was mad at Ostrich, and I thought it was going to be a single match.
Yeah, I got to double check. I think that was what I originally read. And by the way, he was licking his own blood during that promo, which was really, it was just, what a weird night.
That's the best way to check to see if you're low on iron. So anyway, another attack, another angle, another match announced for what?
Ospreay jumps in there, and I don't think he's easily recognizable to everyone. I mean, some of the people in the front may recognize him if they watch every week and watch New Japan, but he got in there and he did this move. I've only seen it one other time, where Motown 25, the Jacksons reunite, the original Jackson 5.
Yes.
They're doing a medley of all their hits. And then after they're done with that, Michael goes, Randy! And Randy Jackson, who joined at the end, after Jermaine left, comes out there to no pop. But he makes this move, yeah. And Will Ospreay got in there and puffed out his chest, and I don't think anyone was really going crazy.
But here's the thing. When they're doing these 8 and 10 person fucking just jump in and nobody knows what's going on and all the work looks like shit, if a fan was to take their shirt off and roll in and start doing something, would anybody be able to tell? Would you really notice? Think about it.
We're midway through this show. Let me just stop you here real quick. Let's talk about the booking in AEW for a second.
What? How can we talk about something that doesn't exist?
There are people who still think Tony Khan's a good booker. There are people who will say, look at the crowd at Wembley. How could you say he's a bad booker? There are people who will say, I like this kind of stuff. There's lots of people trying to justify things. He hired Will Washington. Remember that guy
Will Wheaton.
Yeah, the guy said he'd been in wrestling media for 18 years. No one had heard of him until just recently, a very small group of people. But he was auditioning for Tony. He got a job. Has anything improved? All these other people got powered up. They were going to do things. Has anything improved? It gets worse and worse. It's a drama factory. There's no management. It's poorly run. No one has any actionable power beyond Tony Khan. Look at the state of this fucking show. And this is the bad show. The good show has nothing but drama coming out of that too because of Tony. Can you stop? Can we stop for 1 second and settle?
I wish we could stop for the rest of the day.
Settle a debate from the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. Is it Haw with an H or Haw with a C? There are people who somehow think you have a C in it.
No, it's Haw. As in he, Haw.
H-A-W?
Yes.
There you go.
Everybody knows that. All righty. Anyway, so continuing on with whatever the fuck it is that we're watching here. The next match, supposedly, allegedly, was, I guess, going to be Darby Allin and Nick Wayne against Bishop Khan and Tia Leone, who are part of the Moguls, the embassy, whatever they're calling Nana's group this week. And here comes Darby and Nick, and there comes Bishop Khan and Tia Leone and jump them in the aisleway. And as boom, 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 as soon as the bell rings to start the match, music starts playing. And here comes Swerve and AR Fox to come and watch the match that is still taking place on the floor because it's just started. And the baby faces are fighting back and they just go to break. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And when they come back within a couple minutes, the baby faces win. There was nothing to this, but then they dare Fox and Swerve to come in and fight them in their skateboard because they got the skateboard in the ring. But Sting pops up on the screen and said he's making movies now. And he announces a coffin match at Wembley Stadium for, I don't know who all's in it but he's got Nana. He's kidnapped Nana and he's got Nana next to him. And Nana's all nervous, but then he like goes boo at Nana and scares him, and Nana runs off, and the heels run to the back to go find wherever Nana is. And we've got a coffin match at Wembley Stadium with I guess Sting and Darby Allin, and is Nick Wayne involved? And are they against Swerve and AR Fox? But is there somebody else? What's going on there?
I can't explain any of this. First of all, Darby's feuding with Christian Cage on Collision. But over here, he's feuding with Swerve. And there's these other guys. Nana was kidnapped. For some reason, the heels dropped everything to go save Nana. I thought that was very nice of them. Very nice heels.
But how did they know where to run to?
Well, he has to be somewhere in the back. Either that or outside a hospital somewhere.
But I run to you, but I don't know where that you've been kidnapped to, but I'll run to you.
What about Sting's acting here? What was he basically saying? I'm going to make a film with Nana? Was he going to make a porno with Nana?
I don't know. He was trying to be like, was it a little Jack Nicholson Joker-ish?
It's showtime.
You know, but I don't know. Everybody was just standing around. And who is in the match? I'm sure the announcers will tell us, but I don't listen to Sockface because you can't understand him. So what the fuck? But yeah, another Wembley match where everybody just went down to the ring, fought for a little while. Somebody popped up on the screen and they ran off.
So far we've had assault during an interview. We've had kidnapping. There's been Is Vince Russo booking Dynamite?
You know, that's what... I had a nice night's sleep last night because we got good news about Harley Quinn's being perkier and healthier. And I certainly wasn't going to ruin my night by watching this. So I got up early this morning and I was going to watch the show, but I got on Twitter first and I saw everybody going, what the fuck was that? And, had to, out of morbid curiosity, go through this fucking thing. But if you believe, folks, that we're making this shit up and that all these things didn't really happen, stay tuned because we're only almost an hour in. It's all going to happen over again a couple of different times. So MJF and Adam Cole are training for their pre-show match with Ozzy Oldham for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team title. And since they're from Australia, they want to scout them out. So they go to the Outback Steakhouse to do more movie buddy comedy or buddy movie comedy or whatever the fuck kind of comedy this is that they're doing. And after that, they got the Crocodile Dundee 1 and 2 DVDs, and MJF is watching kangaroos fighting on his phone. And he develops the kangaroo kick. And then they see an inflatable crocodile. And there's some fucking random guy, I don't know who the fuck he was, that was standing next to a kiddie pool with the inflatable crocodile. And they double clotheslined the guy into the kiddie pool and then got sent to Tony Khan's office where, with the door closed, we are led to believe that Tony Khan actually yelled at somebody and cussed him out for doing something wrong, which is the fakest, most preposterous thing it's ever been on his program. And then MJF plugged Hattie B's chicken, which is the best hot chicken in Nashville. It's the best chicken you've ever had in your life. But he said he had to go take a shit. Apparently, you got the what the cluck instead of just the regular spicy.
This was my favorite part, though, right after MJF left.
What happened? I don't even remember what happened after him. I just wrote, I know it's drawing ratings, but MJF has become fake as the rest of these fucking guys. What was the out?
Roddy Strong at the end kicked the tire of the car.
Oh, that's right. He came up
and hurt his foot.
Yeah.
And then Matt Taven briefly made an appearance in the background, but then it cut to commercial.
That's right. Roddy's still mad that Adam is friends with Max, so he kicked the tire on Max's car and hurt his foot.
That's can I be honest with you? That's my favorite thing about this whole thing. It's so ridiculous. Roddy Strong's new character of being the hurt friend with the neck brace. Now he's hurt his foot kicking. He's like you as a manager. Everything he kicks, he hurts his foot. And then Taven and Bennett are just like the mute friends that are following him around for an undefined reason.
There's a reason why the manager was the one that did all the funny stuff, so that the people would believe that the wrestlers were actually going to be serious and have a good fight. Instead of... So now we've got MJF and Adam Cole in the ring at the 9 o'clock hour for a promo. They've ruined MJF for me. I have to say it. I'm no longer, after these buddy clips of the fucking phony, silly comedy movie clips that they've done that are obviously fake and these guys are good enough performers if you did something like this, as we talked about, with one camera, so it wouldn't look fake and set up and rehearsed, and you might could get away with it, but I'm totally disinterested now. And I know everybody loves it because their audience for this fake, silly, phony, childish program is now the one that they've created, small as it may be, that likes fake, silly, phony, cosplaying, childish wrestling. And they're going to put everybody on this Wednesday night show in this shit and make them look like a bunch of fucking morons. So they did the promo and MJF got them to chant kangaroo kick. I think he could get them to chant fuck my mother, fuck my mother. But they're all working with them. There's no real heat here. There's no real anticipation. It's like, ooh, they're really performing this stuff great. I can't wait to see what they'll say next. What in the world have they come up with to do next? They're all working together. Anyway, the only reason I like watching Adam Cole and MJF now talking in the ring is because it prevents me from having to watch anything else on this show. And this was long, and this was the long story of how MJF got booked by Cody for the first All In. And finally, the summation was it means a lot to MJF to face his best friend at All In, but the only thing that means everything to him is the belt, so he's not going to lay down in Wembley. And both of them started teasing they were going to get frisky with each other, and then they were jumped by Ozzy Oldham, and then turned around and beat them up. And then Adam Cole was standing behind MJF teasing that he was going for the super kick. But when MJF turned around, he didn't. And then they hugged. Remember that spot for later. Brian, I know they're wonderful promos. I know the people like it. I'm sorry. It's gone far enough that I'm not really interested in seeing MJF anymore. It's fake.
Well, I've typically liked the promos in the ring or in the arena more than the segments.
Yes.
And I didn't like this one. I thought the segment in the ring was good. I thought it went too long. But I thought overall it was good. I don't think Aussie Open had been established enough that the people even know who they were. You know, where was Roddy and Taven and Bennett? Oh, they were in the back watching. They showed that, actually. They showed them sitting in the back watching the monitor. I mean, I'll say this was the best thing on this show.
Well, again, the nicest guy in prison, conundrum. I'll agree with that. It was the best thing on this show.
It's a company-wide problem right now. And this is MJF's booking right now. Hopefully it leads somewhere. Something with some edge. Right now is his mid-90s WWE moment, maybe. I don't know. I mean, at some point, if you're around all this stuff nonstop, it has to be infectious.
For 3 years, he was the guy that you could count on, that no matter what else was going on, his matches were going to be good when he had them, and his promos were going to be good, and you were going to believe him, and you believed in him. And, I mean, even if it turns out that it's a plot all along, he's going along with phony bullshit that's obviously phony bullshit that wouldn't have anything to do with a plot against Adam Cole or anybody else. It's just silliness, and he's the world champion. They could have done this in a way that didn't make it look like everybody, including the camera crew, was cooperating to put this together if they wanted to have Adam Cole and MJF have a tenuous friendship, is all I'm saying. There was more.
There was.
Jericho was in the back mad at Ostrich. I still think he said that it was a goddamn single match, but
he was licking his blood. He was licking his blood during the promo.
Take a shit's in the 6-man, right?
What's 6-man?
Twinkle Toes and Hangnail and Ibushi against Don Fallis's family.
Against Bullet Club Gold? And Takeshita?
Well, but Take a Shit was in the attack also.
Oh, so I guess it is just Ospreay against Jericho.
Yeah.
Boy, that's going to be a real test for Ospreay.
It's going to be a real test for my patience. Anyway, the big one was up next. That everybody was talking about, not LA Knight, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre match. Apparently now Warner Brothers has remade a classic film, and they'll probably ruin that too.
No, it's for a video game, I think.
What?
I thought it was for a video game.
Well, God damn it, then that's even worse. I thought they'd remade the movie because they had Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the barricades and Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the fucking ring mat and Texas Chainsaw. I thought they'd remade the movie, which would be like, I thought it would be a shitty remake of a great movie, like all the shit that Rob Zombie did to all the classic horror movies. But this is just so they're just a video game. They're selling shit to children by having a Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match.
I wouldn't say they're selling it to children. This isn't a children's game. And remember, children aren't really the primary audience really with video games.
Oh, Christ.
But that's what this was promoting.
I forgot many grown adults don't have enough fucking time these days, or have too much time on their hands, don't have enough to do, that they're sitting around playing fucking video games.
Do you think it did a good job of selling the game, or did it do a good job of making you want to cut your TV in half with a chainsaw?
It did a good job of making people say, what the fuck, according to your poll on the internet. This was... remember what it was like? It was almost as bad, but this is kind of worse because it was with less talent, less name talent, and went on longer and was more phony than when the Zombies ate people on the WWE program. What were they promoting at that point when the Zombies ate everybody?
The stock buyback? I don't know.
Either next thing Vince wanted to do to a paralegal. I don't know. So it's Jeff Hardy versus Jeff Jarrett. And I guess the reason they thought that Jeff Hardy could do this was because they didn't actually have to have a match and get in the ring. And there was so many other people involved. But good Lord, boy, howdy. They gave Jeff an entrance into the arena, and he acknowledged the people and then went back to the breezeway where they had red lighting set up. And all kinds of, horror implements on the wall, leg shackles and impressive knives and things like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, except they were just hanging on the wall and they didn't really use them. And Jeff Jarrett attacked Jeff Hardy, and immediately Karen was running in and jumping on his back. And then they're having a fight in the hallway of the arena with red lighting, sort of like where Hangnail was with the ambulance. And here comes Zippy the Giant Pinhead in, but he's wearing Plowboy Frazier's overalls.
No, he looked like Little John here. Silo Sam.
You know what? You're right.
He was dressed like him and he looked like him.
And his little tiny head is about the same size as that giant goiter that Little John had on his side that the overalls covered up. Did I ever tell you about that?
You bring him up, you bring it up.
It looked like a half of a football with fucking clamp marks on it. And we used to rib Bobby that we'd do the spot where the baby faces would shoot the heels into the big giant and they'd take a bump off of him. And we said, Bobby, if you hit him on that side, that's going to bust and all that fucking fluid's going to come out all over you. And he'd go in the bathroom and throw up over that.
Well, coincidentally enough, that was a reaction many people had to this match.
Yeah, so then here came Matt Hardy and the other Page, and somebody there was dressed like Too Cold Scorpio. And they jumped on...
Like Flash Funk, the Flash Funk version of Scorpio.
Yes. And they jumped on Zippy, and then they dumped a bucket of fake blood all over Jeff and Karen Jarrett so that they were covered in what looked like blood, like the Carrie movie. And they staggered down. They were going behind the bleachers in the back of the arena, I guess, because it was very tight, and they just went to break. At that point, and you couldn't tell what was going on. This was shot so closely. It was so crowded. There were people running in and out. It was dark and oddly lit. Just a mess. And they come back from the break, and now Jay Lethal is out there, and it was badly lit fake fighting. And then they all fought out onto the stage. There was Sanjay. We finally noticed him. And when they finally get out to the stage, I guess the people had been watching this on the screen. I'm surprised they didn't set the seats on fire, having to sit there and watch this bullshit. And finally, everybody gets in the ring, and Jeff Hardy gets a kendo stick and starts hitting people, and there's tables propped up in the ring. And now 4 of the baby faces got Jeff Jarrett in the middle of the ring, and we're beating him up 4-on-1. They're the baby faces. He's the heel. And then the other heels came in and grabbed the other baby faces, and Jeff Jarrett, bless him, I'm off of Jeff now. He could have said no. He could have said, I flunked my COVID test. He could have said, my God, Karen's about to give birth to a 10-pound flaming porcupine. We can't make the show. He didn't have to be involved in this. But Jeff lays on one of the tables forever so that Jeff Hardy can swanton him through it, and the people get to see Jeff Hardy do a swanton. And, of course, Jeff Hardy lands flat on top of Jeff because all the shit that he can't physically do anymore and tries anyway, to me, looks dangerous for the other fucking guy, Jeff Hardy. And I wouldn't lay there under anything because he has to land on you to cushion the blow or he'll fracture his fucking skeleton. So then everybody did moves in the debris-filled ring, and Jeff got his guitar. And that, I think, was the only thing that got the people in Nashville to cheer. I don't know because of whether it was Jeff with a guitar or just they saw something familiar. But then Jeff Hardy got it away from him and broke the guitar over Jeff's head. The other Jeff, double Jeff. And then out came some idiot dressed like an emaciated, great value Leatherface, and he's swinging a chainsaw, a green chainsaw that looked not an old, rusted, fucking bloody chain, but a green chainsaw that looked like it was Fisher Price. And they played the chainsaw sound over the public address system. He was just swinging a goddamn dud. It wasn't running. Did you notice that?
You know, I didn't look closely at the chainsaw, so I didn't notice that.
They were playing the chainsaw. I double dog dare anybody go back and listen to it and watch the video. They were playing the chainsaw sound over the PA system. The chainsaw wasn't going. And I know what somebody's going to say, Cornette, you want to trust any of these fucking lunatics with a real chainsaw? No. But if you remember a guy named Chainsaw Charlie, Terry Funk knew how to work a fucking chainsaw. You take the goddamn chain off. And nobody can tell if you're ripping it. That's why Terry's smoked and sputtered and fucking made the noises and he could rev it up. He was running a chainsaw. There wasn't a chain on it. Fucking morons. So then Leatherface went down to the ring and chased Karen, who was doing the horror movie falling and stumbling, and then he was waving the chainsaw at her, and then she'd get up and run a little more, and they fought off. They chainsawed off. And then Jay Lethal came in the ring and hit Jeff Hardy over the head with a Paul Bunyan swing with what was purported to be a fucking hammer. And the way he hit him and the way that his head didn't explode, you could tell it was a fake fucking hammer.
Stop.
Yes.
Hammer time.
Oh, God damn you. Fake hammer time. I thought he would stop. I was like, yes, what's happened? Have we broken up? Is the connection?
Well, it was hammer time, and it was certainly, are you hammering the desk?
Yes, I am. I'm thinking, please, hammer, don't hurt him. Don't worry, this fake hammer wouldn't have hurt anybody. Yeah. So then, Zippy the Giant Pinhead chokeslammed Jeff Hardy and put Jeff Jarrett on top of him, and Jeff won 1, 2, 3. So the heel defeated one of the biggest baby faces in the history of the WWE. Of course, that's in the past. In a completely... this wasn't even a garbage wrestling match. It was a parody of... It was Saturday Night Live. And one would assume that there wouldn't be a rematch from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match, because after you've gone through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match, Brian, I mean, how could you top that? 2 out of 3 falls. So this is one of the fakest, most embarrassing things that's ever been on any wrestling program's television. I'm embarrassed that Jeff Jarrett was involved, that he apparently needs this badly now. Yeah, Jeff, goddamn. He started promotions. He's fucking been in the business for 1986, 37 years. But he needs a job badly enough to willingly be involved in this. And there was one legitimate talent in this entire fiasco, Jay Lethal. And think of the things he could be doing and the matches he could be having in this company. And he's as hidden as Sanjay Dutt in just one of the merry band of pranksters. Again, I can believe everybody else in this thought that this was a great thing to do, except for Jeff Jarrett. And I know Jay Lethal knows that it's garbage, but he has no other choice. That's what happened there.
I'd like to call mea culpa. Matt Hardy was right. He's still doing great work. I was wrong. I was clearly wrong. He was a big part of this big match that will be remembered for years to come.
He wasn't even getting to fuck the dog. He just had to hold its head. He couldn't
even get to the dog. There were 2 people in front of him every time he tried to reach for the dog.
The line to the dog was too long. He was a peripheral player in a dog fucking. He couldn't even star in a dog fucking.
Well, I couldn't have said it better than that. And with Jeff Jarrett, this was always my fear. Like, he would come into AEW and everything would become TNA. And This is worse than anything TNA ever had.
Yeah,
That's going to be my
poor
point.
TNA.
That's going to be my point. Whatever restraints there were in TNA under Jeff and Russo.
He was not He was not pissing. He was not pitching any of this shit. Even in TNA, I sat in the meetings. No, the other guy, anything that approached this was the other guy. But even the other guy,
were they
think ever did this.
Were they supplied with that bullshit mask for Leatherface?
Well, that's another thing. It didn't even look. It looked like somebody went to fucking Walgreens and got a leather face mask. It wasn't even. He didn't even look intimidating. His clothes were clean. There was no blood, no innards or bowel matter or anything on the fucking apron.
Which one of the agents said, I'm okay with going out there and throwing that chainsaw around a little bit?
The physique was still awfully dumpy for anybody that would have been a wrestler. Maybe Kingston?
So, I mean, that's the question. You think they were supplied with a bullshit Leatherface from Discovery?
Central Leatherface casting?
There are wrestlers out there. I mean, Tony Myers and various other people who have been, or still are, a version of Leatherface. You could have used one of them. Where did they find this person?
I don't know that anybody that's actually still trying to be in the wrestling business would have asked to be involved in this thing. So they probably had to get a fake leather face. That's why his face was rubber instead of leather. It was cheap.
And if I could be serious for a moment, I'm glad that Jeff Jarrett went over, because what a tribute to Nashville wrestling. It would be a disgrace if he had lost on this night.
His grandmother would have given him the grip. If you had sat Christine Jarrett down and told her, watch this. This is what they're doing to wrestling now. 25 years after she passed away, she wouldn't have watched it. She would have turned away from it. It would have made her not just mad, but disgusted and probably depressed that this is what is being passed off under the name professional wrestling these days, that she spent her life in, and that her grandson was involved center stage. I think may have been more than she could take, and she would have gone back there and give him that grip, thumb on the fucking right jaw and the fingers on the left jaw, and squeezed him until he was puckered up like a goddamn kiss fish, and told him never to do anything like that again if he wanted to be a part of her family. I firmly believe that is what would have taken place. But we had another match coming up.
Okay.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that match was certainly a bunch of crap. And after something like that, you may want to do something to fix your life up, maybe something to cheer you up, something like a box of awesome.
You know, I was afraid you were going there by the time you got there halfway, because there is no transition from a house of horrors to a box of awesome, from sitting down at the dinner table with Leatherface and his entire disgusting family, to sitting down at the dinner table with your lovely family and opening up a box of awesome gifts that you have ordered for yourself or they have ordered for you. There's no comparison. There's no transition. And that's why Brian Last flummoxed the whole thing up, because there's no transition. You got to go straight to the box of awesomeness. And that's exactly what you're going to get, folks, from our friends at Bespoke Post. The box of awesome contains everything that you want to satisfy your needs and desires of a variety of your personal interest. And they release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. All you've got to do is go to boxofawesome.com and you take their little quiz, and they'll ask several pertinent questions about what your interests are, your hobbies, your likes and dislikes, what kind of things that you might enjoy if it were sent to you. For example, you know, what kind of wine you drink, or what kind of food you eat, or what kind of trips you take, or what kind of things you collect, or what kind of sex toys you use, anything like that.
Not that
specific thing, but things like that.
Specifically not anything like that, to use your exact words.
Well, those are certainly several words that I used. But when you take that quiz, your answers are going to help them pick the right box of awesome for you. And then the awesome thing about it is that 90% of everything that comes in your box of awesome is from a small up-and-coming brand that needs your support. You're supporting small businesses, and so are our friends at Bespoke Post with Box of Awesome. It's free to sign up. You can skip a month. You can cancel anytime you want. As a matter of fact, if you tell them, they'll cancel everything. You can tell Box of Awesome, hey, just cancel everything. You won't get mail anymore. You won't get a milk delivery. They will cancel all yours. They're very good about that.
That's not the way it works. There's no power of attorney over your mail that you'll be giving anyone. Box of Awesome is only concerned with delivering you fine products. Hey, Jim, guess what? I got one right here they just sent to me.
You got your new box? I'm still waiting on my box. My delivery of box comes later than your box.
This Damascus folder is made of 1095 Damascus steel, forged from hundreds of layers of high carbon metal. Go ahead, open it. Look at the waves. Feel that texture. Maybe even grab the handle and slice off the corner of this card. See how easy it glides through? The thing is sharp. And there's more notes here about this wonderful new knife I have.
Did Mr. Peterman write that?
Jay Peterman?
Yes, either that or Elaine, or possibly the assistant that she promoted up because she was scared of him. But I understand the Damascus steel knife is made by Buck and Bear Knives, located in Pennsylvania. Did you know that?
I did not know that. It's not on this card here. Where are you seeing that?
It's on my copy, I'll tell you what. But and here's the thing, folks. If gather the family around. Open your box of awesome, grab that knife out and start waving it around. Your family will do whatever you want them to do. They will
wave the knife around to show
very cooperative.
They will be cooperative because they'll be watching and looking at this fine knife and wanting to see you use it maybe to prepare some food or something else. Let's talk about the positives. And it's nothing but positives. Awesome positives with box of awesome.
Awesome positive things. That's right. And it doesn't have to be knives. It could be guns or hand grenades.
No, they don't have guns and hand grenades.
That's true.
That's not even legal.
Well, small businesses don't manufacture hand grenades or guns anymore. Well, it's all conglomerates now. They've taken it over. So the small businesses, they're sticking to things like you might get a nice shiv.
No, you're not going to get a shiv. Let me give another example. I've got this nice knife they sent me previously. They sent me the ingredients to grow my own pizza. I could grow the tomatoes, I could grow the basil, I can make the tomato sauce, I can make the bread, all the ingredients I need.
You've always seemed like a grow your own guy. But they've got other things I've mentioned besides weapons. You're just very interested in weapons.
What does that have to do with growing?
They've got hot sauces.
What does that have to do with weapons? What are you talking about?
They've got the American barbecue rub in the carnivore box from the Great American Spice Company over in Rockford, Michigan. They've got the Weekender bag that they sent Stace is just lovely. And, of course, we got our Julep Cup set. That's, of course, great for Derby time here in the Derby City. But regardless, folks, whatever you want in your box of awesome is up to you. And I promise you, even if you're in an unhappy marriage, you can have one awesome box a month in your own home. If you go to boxofawesome.com right now and enter the code DRIVE, you're going to get 20% off your first monthly box. Boxofawesome.com, enter the code DRIVE at checkout and get 20% off your first monthly box. Once again, 20% off using the code DRIVE at checkout. Whatever the awesomeness is that you want, you're going to get 20% off of it. Each box is valued at around $70, but you only pay a fraction of that even before they take the 20% off. So actually, you're almost getting this for free. If I were you, I'd order several.
That's
Wouldn't
right.
you, Brian?
I think that's a good idea. I enjoy the box of awesome I get.
You can open them all up while you're waiting for that fucking basil to grow so you can make your own pizza.
Well, maybe you could order yourself one and order some as gifts for other people.
Buy a man a pizza, he'll eat for a day, but teach a man to grow his own pizza, and he'll be highly fucking pissed off you didn't just buy him a pizza.
Well, we're talking about Box of Awesome. What's the promo code, Jim?
No, the promo code is not Jim. The promo code is Drive at checkout.
No, I was asking you, what's the promo code Jim?
What's the frequency, Kenneth? Boxofawesome.com. Enter the code Drive at checkout for 20% off.
Well, once again, Jim, I reiterate, I love my Box of Awesome. I love my new knife here, and...
Hey, I'll tell you what, you love that knife enough that I'm afraid to say anything bad about your Box of Awesome.
Well, thank you very much. That's how it works here, but speaking of knives, let's cut through more of AEW Dynamite, because what a banner edition it was this week.
Well, and again, you go back to the show, we finally got a match in the ring. Talking about Box of Awesome, we got Dr. Britt Baker versus the Bunny. I haven't seen the Bunny wrestle, but I have seen her box. But in this case...
Awful.
They went 1 minute to the break, and when they came back from the break, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I was low on time. This show was grating on my patience, and the Bunny looks like a baby deer on ice. And did I miss anything? Who got jumped after the match and beat up, and who bled in this one?
I didn't pay that close of attention because it was really bad. Britt won. She'll now be in this big 4-way match at Wembley Stadium to be one of the to do or get whatever it's for. She's in the match. I don't remember what the stipulation, what title or whatever it is.
There's 4 women and it's every man for himself.
Yeah, the Bunny does a lot of shticky faces always, and I can't take her seriously.
The Bunny has a sticky face?
A sticky, not sticky, sticky. Sticky.
It's sticky.
Like, it's just like it's a hammy, like she's hamming it up.
Oh, I thought you meant she had sticky ham on her face then after a while there. Or maybe it was Shecky Green.
I don't know.
Don't know why you're trying to accuse the Bunny of having...
I wasn't accusing...
What is she, a Dunkin' Donut? She's been glazed?
That's not what I was saying at all. You are... I don't know where you're at. But anyway, you didn't miss anything, and I have a feeling... I can't wait to see the ratings. I'm going to say that again this week. Because I don't know how anyone... the audience was silent during this.
It would be inexplicable to me if this show kept the viewers it started with. I'll just say that. Inexplicable. So next up, the Acclaimed. They're the top of the chain. They did their entrance and they did their rap. And their opponents, 2 job fellows, were in the ring. And suddenly the lights went out. And they were out for a long time. And the announcers just didn't even seem concerned. Oh, this is happening again. And then the lights come on, and guess what? The House of Black is still allowed to teleport on Wednesdays. Actually, that would have been better if they'd have done that, because when they turned the lights out, they just it was quiet and it was black and people didn't care. So when they turn the lights on, there's the House of Black. They're standing in the ring. The job guys are gone completely. Nothing even made any noise. So what did they do with these people? Did they teleport them back to the House of Black dimension? Did they pay them off quickly and the deal only took 10 seconds to consummate and they ran away? Or did they just jump down and hide under the ring because it was all set up and everything's fake? One wonders. So, they're the House of Black on Saturdays and they're the House of Black on Wednesdays. And, of course, as former tag team champions and as one of the most popular babyface teams in the company, the Acclaimed turn around, try to swing at these guys, and immediately get shut down. Not one of the heels takes a bump or even takes a shot. They just block the fucking punches and fuck you and shut them down. And beat them up. And got juice on Max Caster. And stole Billy Gunn's boots. So, the Acclaimed also stood there in the same position with their backs turned to the opponents they thought were in the ring the entire time the lights were out. And when the lights came on, then they turned around and saw that all was not as they thought it was. And then they were completely ineffectual in doing anything about it and didn't land a blow and got their shit kicked in and left laying. Wonderful job of, and their honorary father's property stolen. Wonderful job of babyface fire and passion and capability from the Acclaimed. Your thoughts, Brian?
An interesting twist in the House of Black. We knew they were somewhat evil and dark. Brody King's rather well dressed, I have to say.
Yeah, he went from looking like a panda bear to looking like he just stepped off the top of a wedding cake.
It's like a little boy going to a funeral in 1910. It's like a weird look. But, they're out there and they stole the boots. And in their previous feud, they stole the mask. They're going after everyone's clothing. What's that about?
They're clothing thieves.
That was the previous feud they were in. They stole the guy's mask to go right from that to stealing the boots. They just keep stealing things.
30 years ago, the wrestling rosters were filled with panty droppers. Now they're filled with clothing thieves.
What would they go after next? Darby's jacket?
I don't think he'd care about that. He's not into material possessions. They need to lay off his skateboard, though. What about if somebody set fire to Darby's skateboard and shoved it down the entrance ramp, and there it would be, instead of the burning dumpster, it'd be the burning skateboard coming down the entrance ramp to signify their product.
That's interesting, though, the whole Darby thing. He's not interested in material things. I bet you if you ripped up his jacket, he'd be upset, or wrecked his skateboard, right?
I think the boy has misplaced priorities, because I would have been more concerned when I was sleeping in my fucking car about selling that skateboard to get enough money to go to the fucking Super 8. That's just me. This whole show was a fucking 2-hour angle that never ended. It was just, people were coming out under the pretense of having a wrestling match so that more people could jump them and beat them up and bust them open and or turn on them and or whatever the fuck. And then everybody screams, Wembley!
Now, to those who may argue that we're being extreme in our review, that Tony, as the promoter going into what may be the biggest crowd outside of North Korea in wrestling history, he's hot-shotting. That this is just his bizarre way of hot-shotting. Any merit to that?
Yes! Yes! There's all kinds of merit to that, because he's already almost filled the place up. He got another gift. That's the most galling thing about this. It's all as a result of a human, real-life Richie Rich getting gifts. He got a gift of $100 million from his father. They've admitted that now. The investment was $100 million. And they've also admitted they ain't made it back yet. He got $100 million from his father because he's his son.
Don't make it back in the video game.
He got a national cable outlet because they own a pro football team and they did business with TBS and TNT. He got the Wembley Stadium deal because it's a happening. It's the same thing, only on a much bigger scale than the first All In. We're mad at the biggest company. They're boring and they don't do what we like. So we're going to support these ragamuffins over here. And it's a giant crowdfunding deal. And the reason why Wembley is 8 times as big as the first All In is because Wembley and England, the UK, gets many more than 8 times less major wrestling shows than the United States. But it's the same principle. They want to be there. It's a happening. It's a fuck you to Vince and the evil empire. We're going to support this, and it's ours now. We get Wembley, United Kingdom, we get the show. He keeps getting these gifts. I won't say it's a gift that a lot of these guys work for him, because he's paying them more money than they've ever made in their lives, and in many cases, more money than any of these people would ever have made, because nobody in their right minds would pay them this much. So that's not a gift, but he's got talent. So he got talent. And he got a gift of Wembley Stadium. He got a gift of television. He got a gift from his father to start this whole thing. And he refuses to goddamn take charge of it or put people in charge of it that know what the fuck they're doing and can produce a cohesive fucking television show instead of a goddamn raving mess. And we're not finished with the mess.
You know, imagine when he first talked to you, if he said, and no one will write my television but me, and no one will run my locker room. And he just stopped there. Because that's really what it is, right?
I mean,
he wants to be in charge, but he doesn't want to be in charge.
He didn't really have to say that. As soon as he said, nobody's going to write my television except me, and I heard who his business partners were going to be, I knew that nobody was going to be running the locker room. So, and 4 years later, here we are. And nobody has done either.
Whose fault will it be next? It was you because you were angry and upset. Then it was Punk, and he's been like the biggest enemy they've had yet. Who's it going to be next to blame instead of looking at themselves?
Well, maybe it's going to be whoever shot the entrance of the Gun Boys. Did you notice this?
What?
The Gun Boys have a new entrance where they're under a spotlight on the stage and they're doing a pose, and the camera does the 360 around them, the 360 spin around them, right? And they got the smoke machine going, so they look great. But then when the camera comes to a stop, as they're looking past the guns, you see Maddie of the Buckaroos waiting for the appropriate cue to super kick him. And then he looks over at his fucking idiot dimwit brother, who's off camera because of the fog, and gives him a nod. And then they come and they super kick the goddamn Gun Boys.
Classic Bucks.
And so they start the match on the goddamn stage. They've only got 12 minutes left on the air. I didn't know they were going to do an overrun, and apparently neither does the network until they run out of time and call on their dedicated line that we've mentioned before that you have when you're doing a live television program and say, can we please have some more time? We're not going to be done in time, because they can't manage their program. Have you noticed that when you DVR NXT or when Raw has an overrun, you get everything because it's scheduled? But on this, no, it's just they can't manage their time. And they had 12 minutes left on the air. They could have had a nice tag team match with the Buckaroos and the Gun Boys. But it's not, the Maddie and Nikki want to make sure they get to do all their stuff. So they not only had to jump start it on the stage and then dive off the stage and fight in the arena before the match started. But then, once the corpse referee rang the bell, they immediately go into a four-way. No tags. The referee standing there dumbfounded. The Buckaroos doing the same flippy shit that they do in every single match you ever see them in. And so at that point, I said, well, I'm going to skip to the finish. I didn't know there was an overrun. So as I'm skipping to the finish, I get to fucking 1 minute left, and I'm thinking, shit, I better slow this down. And the Buckaroos had just won their match, but my DVR froze up, and I would have had to zip all the way back through the show, and I didn't care that much. I said, okay, the Buckaroos won. And then you tell me, oh no, there's an afterbirth. So I had to watch on YouTube the closing minutes of this fucking fiasco. After the Buckaroos win, the fucking bad guys jump them, and they get more heat after, until this time the baby faces that come to save, like we've seen 5 times on this program in the last 2 hours. This time it's FTR. They play their music, and FTR comes down and runs off the Gun Boys and Gin and Juice. And then, Brian, you'll never guess what they did. It was revolutionary. It was something that's going to sell 20,000 more tickets to Wembley Stadium. As the Buckaroos were standing there watching the heels run up the hill, FTR was behind them, teasing like when they turned around, they were going to hit one of them with their finish. But when the Bucks turned around and went, up, Then FTR straightened back up like they didn't mean to do it and they weren't going to do that. That was incredible. I hadn't seen anything like that in, I would say at that point, the previous 45 fucking minutes. Since Adam Cole and MJF did the same goddamn spot, the same goddamn way, pointed in the same goddamn direction. And that was that.
Isn't this also similar to the way they first built up the tension way back with FTR and the Young Bucks, where they came out, they didn't attack them, they would help them?
No, the way they first built up the tension between FTR and the Young Bucks was when the two little kids from Cucamonga kept running their fucking dick lickers about the two real men from North Carolina that were so much better than the Buckaroos would ever be that they were fucking jealous. That's when the tension first started.
Well, that's what I was trying to say, yes.
Yeah. So I'm just looking back over my notes, and the only... God damn it. It's just schmaz, angle, fight, chaos, gimmicks, no DQ, anything goes. The actual just one-on-one wrestling matches on this program were Britt Baker versus the Bunny and the company mascot against his friend Wheeler Useless, and that was pretty much it. Everything else is just a fucking mess.